Calculating rate and time periods under time value of money. We can solve for interest rate under time value of money if we know enough of the other variables. Basically, what you need to know is the present value, and if there's associated future value, you'd need to know that. You'd need to know the number of time periods. There's an algebraic expression here which you could plug that into and solve for rate. Your calculator will solve for rate using that algebraic expression. You would simply put in all of the variables which you know and solve for rate, which is the one which you don't. Something to be careful of if you're going to use a calculator or an Excel spreadsheet is that you have to have opposite math symbols on present value and future value. One of them has to be positive and one has to be negative. To do this in Excel, we use something called the rate function, and we'll just demonstrate that here very quickly. Here I have the present value of $500. I anticipate it's going to grow to $1,000 in 10 years. So I have a $1,000 future value, number of period is 10 years. The question is, what interest rate does that equal? Or in other words, how much of a return am I earning if my $500 grows to $1,000 in a 10-year period? And we'll solve this using the rate function. And you notice it's asking for number of periods, and so we'll go ahead and tell it it's there. We're going to ignore payment for now since it's not relevant. Present value, I'm going to put this in as a negative number because one of the two numbers, either present value or future value, has to have a negative sign on it. If you don't do that, you tend to get an error or no solution. So I'm going to put the negative sign here, say that my present value is located here, future value is located here, and it calculates that the rate of interest in this particular example is 7.18%. So why don't you go ahead and try one. Here's an example for you. You'll notice that the number of years is different. So we're going to go from $500 in present value to $1,000 in future value, but it's going to happen 6 years from now. And go ahead and give it a try. The answer is at the bottom, and feel free to pause. We can also solve for a number of time periods if we happen to know the future value, the present value, and the interest rate. So for example, the question might be, hey, I'm going to invest a certain amount of money. My target is to, have, $10 million in the future. How long is it going to take? There's algebraic expression here. Notice the use of natural logs. Calculator will do it by plugging in the variables that you know and solving for the one that you don't. And in Excel, we would use a function that goes by the name of NPER, standing for number of periods. And we'll demonstrate that very quickly. So what you'll see here is that we have $500 that we're going to start with. We anticipate that that's going to be worth $1,000 in the future. We also anticipate that we're going to be able to earn 13% interest. The question is, how long is it going to take? So we're going to use a function called NPER, N-P-E-R, and I'll go ahead and search for it here. There it is. So it wants to know first, what's the interest rate? This is my annual rate. What's the present value? Now I'm going to put a negative sign in front of this because one of the two has to have a negative sign. And then the future value is located right here. And you'll notice that I left the payment field empty because it does not apply in this particular example. And so the example, or the answer here, and let me format that correctly, the answer here is it's going to be 5.67 or 5 2/3 years before our $500 grows to $1,000. And that's based on using the NPER function. Here's a quick look at what the variables were that went in if you need to review that again. Please push pause. So why don't you go ahead and give it a try. So the question is, how long until you become a millionaire? You're going to invest $75,000 in present value. Future value is $1 million. assume you're going to earn 12% annual rate of interest. Remember, either present value or future value has to have a negative sign if you're going to use either Excel or a calculator to solve for this. And the answer is found at the bottom of the screen.